Hey, for Saturday, June 27th, 2020, this is the one and only, I'm sure the one and only Pro and Con Show. Coming to you from Hudson, Wisconsin. My name is Michael James Ott, and I'm your host. And as always, welcome to the show. So, trying to encourage us all to be better citizens, always, which means being open to listening to each other to find out how we got to where we are on the various issues. And the issues are complex. And there's close to 340 million Americans, and there's going to be a lot of opinions. But what you'll find is if we'll take a little bit of time and talk to each other, we'll find out the basis behind each other's opinions. You'll find out there's a lot more common ground than we would ever imagine is available to us, given social media and stuff, which has a tendency, especially because of the way it's manipulated by various agencies, to try to polarize us. And in that regard, just a reminder of the Independence Day event, which is originally conceived. I was hoping that people would just go, to the street for an hour and really get close and personal and talk to people and shake hands and all that kind of stuff. Well, obviously in the middle of the pandemic, don't do that. But shout out to people over Zoom and various digital media, and no problem. Also, you can go out to the street. Just keep distance, wear a mask. These are the two things that are important. Keep distance, wear a mask, but you can have a nice conversation with anybody in a street, 6 or 8 or 10 feet apart, wearing a mask, not a problem, and talk to them. I don't know, just number one, I'm Michael, and I'm pledging to you, I am going to be a better citizen. Okay, I am going to listen to your concerns, and I would ask that you would listen to mine. And I especially want to know how you arrived at the positions that you've gotten to with whatever the issue you think is important in that region. Maybe there's a huge issue with unemployment because the local factories are all shut down because of the coronavirus or whatever. Whatever. But have the conversation, pledge to each other to be better citizens, to focus on the who, the what, the where, and the when, and also on listening to each other to understand how you arrived at the positions that you've arrived at. Listen to each other, and you'll find that there's lots of common ground out there. And step by step, we can do a lot of things going forward, make us all feel a lot better about how we're doing things if we'll just do that. So today's show is called Citizen Statesman. So I've got a few shows in the past called Citizen Statesman. And so just a history, just very quickly. America, we all know, we basically depend in our politics on a two-party system, Republicans and Democrats, okay? And more or less, it's been that way for decades and decades and decades. Well, you won't find the first word about political parties in the Constitution of the United States or in the Declaration of Independence or any of the other kind of founding documents that we kind of enshrine and hold dear to us in this country, because those documents have kind of made this framework of this apparatus that has, for the most part, worked much better than perhaps even the founding fathers, if you will, the founding members of our country would have thought it would. And they were smart back when they were putting this together. It's like, well, things could change, or we might need to amend how things are done. So there's, the opportunity to amend the Constitution and so on. Well, how did the political parties then spring up? Well, there's two sides. So one is back in the day. So this is well over 200 years ago now. Communication and education, both of those things were well, really not readily available. So you had a very high percentage of the population with not a lot of education. And, back in the day, letters and stuff, wow, that was it. So back during the day of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, you had community of people that could kind of, they're like the criers, the town criers, they could go out and so you had even limited papers, even like printing a paper and stuff was a real endeavor, a real difficult thing to get done. And so the sharing of information and the education of people, it was nearly impossible. And so you had that, okay, those factors, plus you have the factors of people. Our definition of success is the accumulation of wealth, influence, and power. And so you have certain people that would say, well, I want wealth, influence, and power. Well, how am I going to get it? Well, I'm going to form a team. I'm going to form a tribe, and basically political parties. Okay. So what you have then is what's basically happened is that they've dumbed down things intentionally to try to divide the country effectively in half. And, and then we as citizens, even though the availability of communication and education has gone up exponentially since back in those days, we've just kind of plodded along. Here we go. We're going to stay with this, two-party system. It's what we're used to. And there's the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, is it broke? Well, it's not great. It's been that way for decades. People have been complaining about Democrats and Republicans and corruption and party bosses, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. But not broken enough that we apparently were willing to get rid of it. Okay. And maybe part of that is no one had and I think personally, actually, no one had a better idea. So the better idea is because the political parties are fraught with, a bunch of political motivation, and again, these people trying to be the puppeteers over their little tribes, and most of us, the vast majority of us, get caught in the middle of all this stuff, whether we realize it or not. And so let's get rid of the political parties. And so I started, and then, there's also all the corporate money and various special interest groups and stuff that are focused on whatever they're focused on, to try to move forward their agendas and stuff like that. And so there's tons and tons of money in politics and all this other stuff. So I'm like, we need to get rid of this. And there's a ton of people across the nation, Democrats and Republicans, who feel the same way. I mean, it's got to be 65, 70, 75% of the nation wants to fix politics, wants to fix the system by which we elect our officials, but there's no clear path forward for fixing it. So there's band-aids. And I was, promoting, for example, that we should just make, contributing to, basically everything should be federally funded. All the candidates should be given the same amount of money exactly to the penny. And there should be, like, instead of doing all of this stupid attack ads and stuff on television, there should be, because we have modern communications and modern systems, we should have a secure website where we can put all this information and then just send voters. All of us would go there, and if you don't have your own computer, whatever, no problem. You can go to a public library at your place of work. We mandate that there's time given for everyone to go in, look at this information, for people who can't see, there'd be special sites that would read the information, whatever, all that stuff to make sure that it was going to be fair. And I've been telling people about this for a handful of years now. And a couple of years ago, I guess, I was saying this to one of my colleagues, and I'm not going to mention his name. He's a great person. And if he, at any point in time, this starts taking off and people want to know who he is, if he wants to self-identify, he can. But I'm not going to tell who he is because he's a private citizen. Okay? So if he ever wants to come forward and say, yeah, that was me that suggested this, I will for sure immediately acknowledge that that's true. But until that day, he's going to have to remain a mystery. But what he said to me was, it should be like jury duty. And, sometimes one of the great things about brainstorming and working with people is, you're headed down a path and you're talking about stuff and you're trying to, move the whatever it is forward, and someone says something, and it kind of lifted off of the conversation in general, and it's like this amazing light bulb moment, the big aha. And he's right. One of the big problems that we have is, how do we identify people to try to fit into this structure of government? Well, they volunteer themselves, or they're found by some political boss somewhere who figures that they can, one, that the person has, skills to speak, publicly and that kind of thing. But most importantly, is probably easily manipulated by the party boss, so that they can, continue to pull their puppet strings, right? So people either just volunteer because they actually want to do something good for the country, but in all cases, if they recognize what they're volunteering for, which our current election process stinks. It's really horrible. So if you want to volunteer for the current election process, wow, there's a part of you that would be king, I call it. There's a part of you that would be king. And that's the problem that we have. One of the problems that we have in all of the people that fulfill the structure of government, okay, between the three major branches of government, is there's a bunch of people that would be king. And so what we need to do is, instead, just like jury duty, we cast a wide net. We get, I don't know how many hundreds or maybe even a few thousand every election cycle. We get a bunch of potential people selected at random, just selected at random. And then we start evaluating them through a step-by-step process. Now, I've written and proposed a 28th Amendment to the Constitution that goes through that, because honestly, us citizens, we can't leave it to the current legislators and president. We're going to have to get this word for word right in the Constitution, because otherwise it's going to get biased and watered down and incorrect, because again, the political parties are going to try to just manipulate it into God knows what. But the whole point being, we can then will establish this methodology, and again with a website with some of these ideas about secure website, everyone has access, everyone can go in there and look, what it looks like and all that to be determined, but for sure we can do all that. And then there's no special interest money, there's no attack ads, and what we do is we look at whatever people, and by virtue of looking at them, talking to them, getting, finding out about their backgrounds, their educations, their what they think is most important to them, their personalities, and so on, by step, we'll filter them like a sieve. We'll figure out who the best of those randomly chosen candidates are for President of the United States, or Senator from Wisconsin, or whatever. And then we elect them, and then they serve a single term in whatever position in this government that we have, and they do their dead level best to do they take an oath, they do their best for whatever the period of 2, 4, 6, whatever it is that they're elected to, the term of their position, and then when they're done, they come home. That's it. Just like jury duty. Trust me on this. And so I beg you to think about that. A lot of people, well, it's new, that's different, oh, it's scary. But think about it. Give yourself some time to think about it. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your family members. Give yourself some time to think that through. And I think if you do, you're going to say, wait, I think they're on to something here. And so then what we need to do is gather together and move forward with this brand new vision for not the government structure itself, that's sound, but how do we fill the positions in that government? That's what needs the big improvement. We're in democracy 1.0 right now with the 2 political parties, but a fairly good structure. We need to move to democracy 2.0, which better people in that solid structure that we already have. Okay, so I'm Michael James Ott. I'm your host. This has been the Pro and Con Show. And until the next show, bye for now.